I was an innocent bystander. I'm watching Christopher Mad Dog Russo get set up on his Zoom call here with us. And then all of a sudden, it's like his wife's involved, his daughter's involved. There might have been a handyman involved. Chris, you've been doing this a long time.
I'm terrible. I need help. And I had to make a deal with my daughter, give her $100 to set up the next one at 12 o'clock. And here is the love.
He has not been doing it a long time. He has lots of help around here.
Yeah, that's terrible. How are you, Danny?
Hi, buddy. Good to talk to you. All right. What fan base bothers you more today? The Knicks fan base or the 76ers fan base?
I'm going to say 76ers based on the development yesterday that the ownership had to go buy 2,000 tickets because they couldn't figure out or guarantee that this would not be a problem tonight with Knicks fans in the building. So I will say because the the ownership after that disaster on Sunday, you think if anything, they waiting online for tickets, that we got to go out there and buy the 2,000 extra. And you know me, Dan, you and I have discussed this in the past. Philadelphia, from a basketball standpoint, historically, has always been very shaky. The Knicks fan is obviously always been loyal. I don't like what the Knicks fan did last Sunday, assuming that they were going to win that series when you know that the Knicks, you can't assume anything with them. But right now, because they bought the 2,000, I'll say Philly's fan base.
What do you expect out of this game tonight?
I expect another game in the last 3 minutes when it's anybody's game. I mean, they played 4 games or 5 games like this anyway. Why wouldn't there be a sixth? I would expect the crowd to be excellent. I would expect Embiid to be a lot better. This series does have a 7-game feel to it. And Dan, you've been following basketball a hell of a lot more than I have, and you played it and everything else. If I told you 2 weeks ago that we'd be sitting right now, Knicks 3, Philly 2, Game 6 in Philly, said, that's what's going to happen. So no matter how they got there, and the Knicks fan all ticked off, blowing that 6-point lead, Philly blew a Game 2 lead. So to me, that was a wash. So this is essentially where we should be. I thought Knicks in 7 prior. I think the Knicks fan will be a little nervous on Saturday, but I do think they would probably win. But I think Philly will probably win the game tonight. But a close game. Last 2 minutes, who knows?
But is this the start of a rivalry from the standpoint of Tyrese Maxey versus Jalen Brunson?
Yes. Good question. That's a very good one, Danny. Yeah, definitely. I don't see why not. Plus, the cities are so close apart, so close together, 90 miles apart. 90 miles. They haven't played since '89. Maxey's great. Brunson's great. Embiid's not going anywhere. Regular season stuff with the NBA, it's hard to develop a rivalry, so you got to have them play in the playoffs. Knicks Pacers, great matchups, as you know, a long time ago. So for the rivalry to build in the NBA, it cannot be generated by the regular season. Yankees, Red Sox is juice in the regular season. The Cowboys and the Giants, obviously, when they play twice. The NBA rivalry has to be fueled by playing in the postseason, and you can't guarantee that they're going to play in the postseason based on all the seed stuff. That's why these two teams haven't played since 1989. But if they play, 3 times in 5 years, there'll be a lot of juice with these two teams.
Watching the Clippers last night, and I don't know, it's almost like you're stuck with what you have here. Just like the Phoenix Suns are kind of stuck with that roster there. Who feels like closer to winning something, Phoenix or the Clippers?
Maybe the Clippers, but you hit it right on the head. I mean, number one, Kawhi doesn't play a lot. He played 68 games in the regular season. Now he can't play. That was a bad performance last night. They couldn't make a shot. They've obviously lots of threes made by Dallas. I wouldn't be surprised if the Clippers won Game 6 because the home court doesn't seem to be a lot. And I think that could be a 7-game series too. But, the Clippers every year, Dan, it's something, isn't it? I mean, it's Blake Griffin breaking his wrist. It's blowing a 3-1 lead to Houston when they had a 30-point lead in Game 5 that one year with McHale coaching the Rockets. It's Chris Paul getting hurt. I mean, it's Leonard doesn't play. There's always something with this friend. And they've never played in a conference final, for crying out loud. I mean, the Clippers, and they've had some good teams last 20-something years. I know a new arena, but they're older. Who knows? I mean, are the Clippers ever going to have a big championship run? They got a great roster, but they can't keep the big guys healthy in big spots.
Could you imagine if you had a high-paid superstar who was playing part-time, and this happened in New York? It feels like Kawhi gets a hall pass, because they're in the shadow of the Lakers, and it doesn't really kind of bubble up to the surface with the national media.
That's a good point. I mean, you and I saw Bird play with a bad back, concussed against Indiana Game 5, and didn't know where he was, and he's back on the court. You and I saw Jordan, return off that broken foot when everybody said don't, and he scores 63 against the Celtics in a losing cause. They weren't going to win that series anyway in 1986. We saw Isaiah Thomas with that terrible ankle. You probably where NBC at the time did the post game and all that when he was on one ankle in the last 2 games. We saw that. Jerry West, 2 broken thumbs, Game 7 against the Knicks in 1970 when the Knicks beat them. Willis, couldn't move. I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, the athlete bigger and stronger. Who the hell's bigger than Jordan or better than him? We saw McHale with a broken foot playing in a freaking series in '88 against Detroit. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, you tell me that these training staffs get in the way. You're telling me that, the athlete is bigger, better, stronger. So as a result, he's more prone to injury. Who knows? But it is the NBA's got a major problem there, and these big stars don't play. Yeah. Giannis doesn't play. Butler doesn't play. Kawhi doesn't play. Lillard doesn't play. I mean, Zion doesn't play. I mean, it's a major problem that they play the 82 games, and then when the games finally mean something, their best players can't get out there and play. It's a major problem for the league. It really is.
Chris Mad Dog Russo, host of Mad Dog Unleashed on Sirius XM, Channel 82, also High Heat on MLB Network, and First Take with Stephen A. and company on the Mothership. If I said to the New York sports fan, I can give you the Knicks winning the NBA title, or I can give you the Giants winning the Super Bowl, or the Jets winning the Super Bowl.
Well, that's a good one. I would say the Jets won because it's been such a long time, 69. They've been so star-crossed, all these injuries, never can get out of their own way. Belichick, obviously Aaron Rodgers last year. Now, remember, the difference between the Jets and the Giants, Dan, is that a lot of Giant fans don't like the Jets. So it's not universal in New York City if they win because half the people won't like it because they don't like the Jets. The Knicks and the Nets are different. There's not enough Net fans to get in the way. So if the Knicks win, it's more of an encompassing thing in New York compared to the Giants or the Jets or the Mets or the Yankees because half the audience doesn't want that team to win because it's problematic for them because they root against them. The Knicks, they're not. So everybody gets on the same page with the Knicks. So I would say, but I still think Jets, it's football. I would say Jets 1, Knicks 2 at the moment. That's what I would say.
You ever have one of those moments going to a press conference where you get embarrassed by the coach in New York?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you have a bad one?
Well, I think the most difficult one was Riley in '95 when they lost Game 7 to Indiana, when Ewing missed the finger roll. Yeah, and everybody knew that Pat was going to leave because, he hadn't signed his new contract. Everybody knew that, the team was older. They weren't going to be as good. And so when he did that press conference that Sunday afternoon in New York, I asked him, I said, Pat, is this your last year coach? And I love Riley. Love him. I know you love him too. I love Riley. I still always, one of my favorites. He is my favorite. And I asked him, Pat, is this it? Are you done? And you know me, I love to ask those questions in those press conferences in those days. Open up my big fat mouth. But I asked him that, and he didn't give me an answer. And I felt so bad for the poor guy because we all knew that he was leaving, and he was only after 4 years, and they had not won a championship yet. That is an awkward one. I think, obviously, the other one that's awkward is the Parcells thing. You remember that one when he left New England? And, he had the speakerphone press conference with the Jet media because he was going to come coach the Jets, and they had to organize it through the through the commissioner's office with the compensation. And I remember we all went to Webster Hall. There was whatever the hall was called in Hempstead with the media in that big theater. And Frank Ramos, the great Jet PR guy, put a little speakerphone on a chair in the middle of the auditorium. And I said, Bill, is this fair to New England when you have a contract to bail out on the Patriots? I said it from 100 yards away. And he said, "Who is that? Who is that?" And he got mad. So I went down to the speakerphone on the freaking on the shelf there. I said, "Bill, can you hear me now?" That was a funny one too. I was in 90. I was whenever that was. What 95, 96, 94, whatever it was.
With the years that I spent in New York, I'm so happy that I got dressed down by Parcells in one of his press conferences. Pat Riley did it to me.
It's a badge of honor.
Yes, because it'll humble you. Like, you got to be willing to ask a tough question, but be willing with whatever repercussions are going to happen.
Good point.
And I remember Parcells saying, "How many games have you coached?"
Oh, that's a tough one.
And I said, "None." He goes, "Exactly." Pat Riley didn't answer a question during the NBA Finals. He didn't answer a question. And Jack Ramsey gave me the question to ask him because I said,
"Oh, really?
Jack, give me one that Riles will have to answer." And Jack's like, "Dan, you need to ask him this." So I ask him, and I'm ready for, what a great question. He didn't answer it. And then I came back over to Dr. Jack, the nicest man ever, and he says, "What did he say, Dan?" I go, "He didn't say anything, Jack. He left me hanging."
Jack, you and Jack had how about the old Lupica to Red Holtzman thing when Lupica was second guessing Holtzman and Holtzman was asked a question in a press conference after a game and Lupica was there, says, "Mike, why don't you handle that?" Meaning, you know what? You're such a hot shot. You answer the question.
You're the expert. Good to talk to you. And thanks.
We love you, Danny. You are the best.
Thanks for combing your hair.
Yeah, I did. Just for you. Just for you.
Mad Dog Russo. Yeah, host of Mad Dog Unleashed on Sirius XM Channel 82. He's shown up a couple times, and it looked like he just rolled out of bed. I think his wife probably said, "Let me comb your hair, get you set up." So High Heat, you can see that on MLB, and of course, he's on First Take every Wednesday.